Here are 3 hidden gems you should be targeting late in your fantasy football drafts. And let me start by apologizing. I apologize because I think I've been way too low on Kyler Murray this year. I've been telling everybody, don't touch him in redraft leagues. In dynasty leagues, sure, great, love him long term. But this year, coming off that ACL, don't draft him. I'm changing my tune. I'm starting to feel like Kyler Murray might be one of the best quarterback values we've ever seen in fantasy football. But Chris, aren't you Mr. like, don't draft the ACL guys, don't touch Breece Hall, don't touch Javonte Williams? Like, sure, don't touch the ACL guys if they're running backs or wide receivers who need to cut, explode, do agility, things like that. But quarterbacks are a different story, and we have a couple recent examples of quarterbacks who have come back from ACL and been very good. Let's start with Deshaun Watson. Tore his ACL week 7 of his rookie year, came back the next year, played every single game, threw over 4,000 yards, had 26 touchdowns. But here's a really encouraging thing about Deshaun Watson. He ran the ball 99 times for over 500 yards that year. That is a big part of Kyler Murray's game. One of the reasons I was nervous about Kyler Murray this year was, A, not sure when he'll be back, but B, will he actually run the football when he gets back, which is such a big part of his game. The fact that Deshaun Watson ran the ball basically 100 times for over 500 yards is a very good sign. Next, we have Joe Burrow, who also tore his ACL in his rookie year, but it was week 11, closer to when Kyler Murray did it. He also came back the following year, started week 1, and he destroyed football that year, threw for over 4,600 yards and 34 touchdowns. And look, Joe Burrow is not a rushing quarterback, but he still ran the ball 40 times for almost 200 yards that year, which for Joe Burrow is a ton of rushing yards. So again, another encouraging sign here that he was ready week 1, put up monster numbers, and still was mobile, moving around, running with the football. And the good news for Kyler Murray here is this was a very clean ACL tear, meaning it was just the ACL, no other tendons or ligaments were damaged, which is the easiest ACL to recover from. Timeline for this recovery is 9 months, which would put him right at week 1. But there's always a chance he's ready sooner, especially since he's a quarterback and doesn't have to rely on quick cuts, bursts, things of that nature. And this is a guy who in his 3 years so far on a point per game basis has finished as a QB3, QB4, and the QB8. He's been nothing but elite in fantasy, and no reason to think it'll be different this year if he gets back on the field, especially if it's week 1. Yet right now on deep best ball drafts, he's typically going as a quarterback 22, and in your redraft leagues, he's not even being drafted. But I'm going to advise, if you miss out on one of the elite quarterbacks, if you don't get, say a Trevor Lawrence type of quarterback, if you get stuck with a Kirk Cousins, an Aaron Rodgers, a Daniel Jones, whatever, I would advise you draft Kyler Murray with one of your last picks and stash him on your bench. Because if he's ready to go week 1, he can definitely put up numbers that are better than those guys, and he could certainly be a waiver wire winner this year at the quarterback position. So rather than leave him out there on the waiver wire for one of your league mates to get, I think stashing Kyler Murray looks like a very good move this year. Again, if you don't get one of those elite quarterbacks, if you happen to land a Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, whatever, you don't need Kyler Murray. But if you don't, I think Kyler Murray could be that guy, and he's basically free in your draft right now. All right, before I give you my next guy, let me just tell you a quick story. So it's 2018, and Le'Veon Bell is just coming off one of the best all-around running back seasons we've ever seen. He had almost 2,000 total yards, 80 catches, and 13 touchdowns, and he only played 15 games that year. But he's also due for a new contract, and he wants to get paid. Unfortunately, his team, the Steelers, don't really want to pay him, so they slapped the franchise tag on him. Well, Le'Veon Bell doesn't want to play on the franchise tag. He feels he's worth more than that, and he's going to take a stand, and he's going to sit out the entire 2018 season. And while Bell did actually sit out the entire 2018 season, the Steelers didn't. They still had to play football games, and they were left without their star running back. So what did they do? Well, they turned to second-year running back, third-round draft pick James Conner, who at the time was thought of as just kind of a guy. Nothing special. He wasn't overly fast. He wasn't an elite pass catcher. He was just kind of a guy. And people thought the Steelers would really take a big hit without Le'Veon Bell there. But James Conner delivered. He put up over 1,400 total yards, caught 55 passes, and scored 13 touchdowns before an injury in Week 13 ended his season. As for Le'Veon Bell, well, he ended up knocking out Adrian Peterson like 7 years later in a boxing match. So why am I telling you a story about Le'Veon Bell holding out and James Conner being pretty good as a rookie? It's It's because we're probably going to see Le'Veon Bell 2.0 this year in the form of Josh Jacobs, who the Raiders just slapped the franchise tag on, and it sounds like Josh Jacobs is very intent on not playing under the franchise tag, which means he's probably going to hold out, which also means the Raiders are going to have to turn to second-year running back Zamir White. And I know a lot of people think Zamir White is just a guy, kind of like what they thought about James Conner. But remember, for running backs, opportunity is king, and if Josh Jacobs holds out and doesn't play this year, Zamir White is going to get all the opportunity he can handle, because behind them is only guys like Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden, not the kind of guys you give the football to over and over again. It's going to be Zamir White handling most of the work here. This is going to be a conservative offense with Jimmy G or Aiden O'Connell, whoever the starting quarterback is. Zamir White is a guy you should definitely be drafting with one of your last picks. If Josh Jacobs holds out this year, he could be this year's James Conner. And even if Josh Jacobs ends up playing, no big deal. Drop Zamir White and add somebody else on waiver wire. Ever since Robert Woods tore his ACL week 9 of 2020, Sean McVay has been looking for that number 2 wide receiver in this Rams offense. First, it was Allen Robinson. That didn't really work out. Then it was Odell Beckham, and that did work out until he tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. But maybe, just maybe, Sean McVay has had his wide receiver 2 this entire time. A 6'2", 200-pound second-round draft pick who's got a pretty good pedigree and showed very good progress from year 1 to year 2. Talking about Van Jefferson. This is a guy who in year 2 had over 800 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns and showed the kind of progress as a route runner you want to see from a potential starter, not only at the NFL level, but in fantasy. Unfortunately, last year, dealt with knee injuries, didn't get on the field till week 8, and by then, Matthew Stafford was one game away from basically being out for the season and just couldn't get anything going last year. But all signs are pointing to Van Jefferson being fully healthy this year, as should Matthew Stafford. They were throwing the ball at the 3rd highest rate of any team in the NFL last year, because that is what Sean McVay likes to do. He likes to throw the football, and as long as Matthew Stafford is healthy, they're going to throw the football a ton. And Van Jefferson gets a bad rap of being a guy who doesn't do a lot of things, but really, he does. He's a great deep ball runner. He's a great vertical runner. He can run the corner. He can run the outs, but he can also run some more of those kind of QB helpful routes like the comebacks and the curls. He showed this in his second year, and he gives this Rams offense something they've been missing for years, and that is that deep vertical speed. In a passing attack like this, it's going to throw the ball a ton with a healthy Matthew Stafford. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is going to get the lion's share of the targets, but Van Jefferson is going to hit on some home runs, hit on some big plays. He could be one of these guys that people pick up off waiver wire as a wide receiver 3 or a flex who helps teams immensely. Don't let your league mates get him off the waiver wire. Grab him with one of your last picks. See what happens with Van Jefferson. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in 2023. So those are 3 hidden gems in fantasy football, but if you want to see some more, check out this video right here.